Hello and welcome to In the Therapy Room podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Oliver Dougall. And in this session, we meet Suzanne Barbour, who was going through some cancer treatment and also a divorce at the same time. And she used this experience to set up a business in helping other women going through similar issues. Hello, Suzanne. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Kelly. My name's Suzanne Barbour, and I am a life coach and menopause mentor, amongst other things.
Excellent. And what would you like to talk about?
Oh gosh, there's so many different things. I think because a lot of my life experiences, probably in the last 5 or 6 years, have really brought me to where I am, and they include an awful lot of things that I guess many people can relate to. So that would be cancer recovery, ADHD, going through all of the mental health challenges that go with that. Of course, going through menopause as a result of the cancer treatment, all the things, all of those kinds of things. And then, of course, how my business evolved from all of those experiences and what I do today evolved from all of those experiences.
So that's quite a lot that's gone on in the last 5 years. So, yeah,
Yes,
so do you want to
there
tell
or
us a little bit
thereabouts.
about how all that came about and what
Y-
happened?
Yeah, so I guess it goes back to 2015, 2016. We were living out, my ex-husband and I were living out in America, and we came back for one reason, or we moved back at the sort of the point of 2000. And 6 months later, we split up and I moved back up to the Northeast. And then in early 2017, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. So I was going through a divorce slash breakup, if you like, and cervical cancer at the same time. I was 41 at the time, and my obs gynae consultant told me that this would push me, or the treatment for cancer would push me into the menopause. So I was like, oh, okay, not really knowing what that meant or how that went. And also, that was a lot of things all at once. And a lot of people know that kind of everything that happens to me always seems to happen in one big go. And then you move on and have a quiet few years and then you get a bit more drama.
I think that's quite common for most people. When people have issues that all come along at once, it's like buses, isn't it? You
Yeah,
don't see one for hours and then they all come, four of them come at once.
absolutely. Absolutely. But I think particularly with the cancer piece, that's something that we've experienced in our family. But weirdly, it's not something you ever think is going to happen to you until it does. And
Yeah.
we know that it affects 1 in 2 people now, and cancer rates are on the rise. So the chances of us getting it one way or another are pretty high for a number of different reasons. But that it was really the biggest shock. They're the words that you never expect to hear, is that you have cancer. And the awful thing is that once you hear those words from a doctor, your brain just shuts down to everything else, and you go, God, now what? And a lot
Yeah.
of information after a doctor said that, you don't hear an awful lot of information from that point of the conversation either. So that was really hard. But also, I think telling my dad was probably one of the hardest pieces of that experience, because we lost my mum to cancer when I was a young child, and he also lost his mum to cancer as well. So his experience of that was not one of survival as well. So you can imagine me then telling him, I've got cancer. Instantly, his brain goes, "Oh my God, she's going to die," which was awful. And I think that was really the one thing that kind of kicked my resolve in the most. And I've said it many times over in various different forums, that mindset is everything when you're going through those kinds of experiences. And the fact that I had to sit there and tell my dad, I am not going anywhere. I am determined that I will beat this. Even if I am the first in my family to beat it, I'm not going anywhere. And that really was the thing that strengthened my resolve, was that promise that I made to dad, that I'm not, I'm not going to go anywhere. And it was quite profound. Dad's not a big talker either. He's not into, he'll listen to us talk all day long about our problems, but he's not one that shares his. So I also made him promise to have a person, because
Yeah.
as somebody who is experiencing and diagnosed with cancer, of course your world gets very insular, and you turn inwards and you're looking to deal with your own stuff, get through treatment, deal with your emotions. But you're not the only person going through it. There's the wider family as well, and they need taking care of and they need people to speak to. whether that's friends or family or
Yeah.
professionals or whoever that is, they've got to have their people as well because they're dealing with it. My now mum, stepmom, I call her my mum because she is, she still can't say to this day, my daughter had cancer. She can't say the words. She always refers back to it
Yeah.
as when you were ill or when you were poorly, but she can't say when you had cancer. So the ripple effect from it is much greater than I think we realize sometimes as well. So yeah, so that was quite intense for me. A lot of people go through treatment for quite a long period of time. I felt very lucky in the sense that my treatment was 6 weeks, but it was every day. So I was at the hospital every single day for radiotherapy, and then once a week it was a full day because it was radiotherapy and chemotherapy. And my
And
mum
you were
was
traveling back and forwards. You weren't like there all the time. You were
no,
all that travel back and forward.
yeah, yeah, which in itself was a challenge, but actually I don't think I would have had it any other way because at least around that there was still some semblance of life rather than if I'd have been admitted to hospital for 6 weeks
Yeah.
solid, I'd have been doing my note. I don't know how. Hats off to anybody that has long term admissions into hospital because that is hard.
Yeah. There's
Um,
something about having your own bed, isn't there? Your
yeah,
own people around you and your
yeah,
familiar
absolutely.
things around you.
Yeah, and I have dogs, so it was
It's
nice just to
comfort
get
from it.
out and wander about with the dogs where I was up to it, and and I think the thing that you're not prepared for is just how. Again, I was very lucky in the sense that I didn't get anywhere near as ill with my treatment as a lot of people do. So I am very thankful for that. And I look pretty much as I look now, maybe a little bit lighter, but I looked very normal. I kept my hair, which I was the one thing that was really, and
Yeah.
a lot of people say that the one thing that you're most worried about is losing your hair, especially for,
That's the
for us
thing you think
women.
about when you think about cancer, you think of losing people with no hair, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the
I was
case for
even
everyone.
looking at for some images on to do some, like, marketing around our care service, and when I typed in cancer, that was the images that came up. It was
Yeah,
women without any hair,
yeah, absolutely. And
and
that's
it is
not
it's a big
always the
part of our
case.
identity, isn't it?
Yeah, but I suppose the interesting part with that is that that's not always the case either. A lot of people I was going through treatment with who were there every day like me just looked like you or I.
Yeah.
There was a bigger proportion of those to those who look like your typical Googled cancer patient, which is it's like Googling menopause. It comes up with grey haired women in their 70s when you Google menopause. Google is not always a great frame of
Yeah.
reference. So yeah, and whilst that was all going on, I was still getting emails from solicitors about the divorce and emails from my ex-husband about the divorce. There was a lot of stress in a very condensed period of time. And from that, once treatment ended, that's really, and a lot of people said this to me, that once you deal with the treatment, you make a plan, you focus on that, you move forward, and you get to the end where you get to ring the bell, which is incredibly emotional at the end of your treatment. But that's not the end of it. When you get to the end of your treatment, you then have to wait for scans to then find out if you are cancer free or not, or if you need further treatment, which is a 3 month waiting process, which is excruciating. And in that time, that's really where your
And
brain gets the opportunity to process all of the stuff that's just happened.
I
Sorry,
was
you were
just
going to
gonna
say
say,
something
did
then and
it
I interrupted.
feel like it was yeah, I was just gonna say that afterwards, sometimes you don't really it doesn't hit you until
Mhm,
afterwards, and then you have to deal with it emotionally because
mhm,
when something's happening, when there's a I don't know if crisis is the right word, but when you're going through anything in your life, it's you don't have time to think about it because you're focused on getting stuff done and getting
mhm.
through it, whereas it's afterwards when it stops, that's when you have the space to think about what's
Absolutely.
happened.
Yeah, you're dead right because you're literally just dealing with what's in front of you. So you're dealing with your appointments. I was still working to a point through some of my treatment. Towards the end
Yeah.
of it, I had to stop because I was just so exhausted. And you are literally just dealing with what's in front of you, which makes you very present, by the way. It's a very good way of making you very present. But yeah, like you say, as soon as you stop, then your brain has all this time and space to process it. And you go, oh my God, that just happened. Now what do I do? Which was really profound. And because of the extra added stress with divorce and, I was living with my parents for a good while and dealing with all of that stuff was really difficult. And trying to find somebody that was available at the time to help me with that was impossible or virtually impossible. Of course, the NHS waiting list, even in 2017, were so long for counselling. Sadly, they're even longer now because the system's just so incredibly overburdened. But we don't want to wait 18 months for help. When we need help, we need it now, don't we, when we're in emotional distress?
Oh,
So I was very
yeah.
lucky that I managed to find a divorce coach, she's now an international divorce coach called Sarah Davison, who really helped me sort a lot of that out. I was trying to figure out menopausal symptoms. I was trying to understand what's menopause, what cancer coming back, what is, if that's what it is, what is healing, what is side effect. And she was incredible in really helping me sort through a lot of that anxiety and trying to put steps to help me move forward rather than sitting in this, I guess, this functional freeze mode of panic where I
Yeah.
was. And then she said to me, she said, "Do you have a coaching background? Do you have these skills? And you've already said to me on a number of occasions, there isn't anybody that does what you needed. So why don't you be that person?" And I was like, "Do you know what?
Yeah.
That's a really good idea," because I was looking to kind of branch out on my own in some way, didn't know what that looked like. And Sarah's thoughts really made that all come together. And actually, I said, actually, yeah, that is really something that resonates or would resonate. And I think because of my lived
Oh,
experience, and you'll probably know this in the forums that you work in, that, where there's lived experience within a coach, when you sit there and say that you understand to somebody, they genuinely know that you get it and you understand how they're feeling. And that creates a different level of connection with the people that you're working with. That is an incredibly powerful one. So yeah, so then I developed specialties in all of the things that I'd been through. So I certified as a divorce coach, I certified as a menopause coach. I work with the Newson Health Menopause Society as one of their members, so that I get access to all the up-to-date research around menopause coming out. I'm certified in ADHD coaching as well, because I was late diagnosis ADHD as a result of the menopause kicking in. So yeah, all the things.
yeah. So do you think you've changed as a person as a result of all the things that you went through at that time?
Yeah, I think more so I learned a lot about myself. I think I very much learned just how much strength a person has when they really need to have it. We look at other people going through these things and think, oh, you're so brave and you're this and you're that, and wondering how people have the strength to do it. But it's really profound how, where you are pushed and tested to deal with those things, you do. And you don't see it as brave. You
Yeah.
don't see it as all the things that people describe. It's just you deal with it as best you possibly can. But I would say
It's
that
that life force coming through no matter what.
absolutely is.
When I was in my counselling training, we had this analogy that we brought out all the time of putting some potatoes in the cupboard in the dark, and the roots always find a way out, don't they? They always grow,
Yes, they
even in
do.
the dark, and that's what we are like as well. We look for where we can heal and how we can grow.
Mhm.
It's that life force that we've all got.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that potato. I'm going to nick that. I think that's, that's brilliant. The potatoes in the cupboard. But it's so true, isn't it? But also, it taught me, I've done endless amounts of research on nutrition and how to remain cancer free, and made lifestyle choices along those lines, along with lifestyle choices to help support menopause symptoms, and endless amounts of research around that as well. And it's actually quite profound how much crossover there is in the ways that we can manage menopause and ADHD and staying cancer free, which is amazing. And that's a lot of the message that I want to get across, because we also see so many women who go through menopause and are diagnosed with adult ADHD, because that hormone drop really makes a change in their presentation of their ADHD or ADD that they might not have been aware of through their, for want of a better phrase, or their reproductive years, if you like, when their hormones were at a certain level. So yeah, it's a really interesting piece of work. But this is why we're seeing a lot more kind of
Yeah.
adult ADHD diagnosis, particularly in women.
It must be really useful to have that crossover. So you've got the ADHD and the menopause,
Mhm.
and those together, you can see the sort of the bigger picture if someone comes to you and they've got both of those.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really fascinating to see how it all links together. And then, of course, with the divorce and the breakup piece as well, menopause and divorce quite often go together as well. So that's been quite a useful
Yeah.
piece to be able to bring into my coaching skill set as well, to be able to support those that are expressing relationship difficulties as well, because We know with menopause that relationships can suffer, whether that's because of mood, fatigue, or impatience or lack of understanding from the other person. There's a myriad of different reasons why relationships can suffer, particularly during menopausal years. So it's nice to be able to bring that support and that knowledge to the table for people as well to help support them through that and help them make decisions that are best for them in their own situation.
Yeah. So do you look for, when you're looking for clients,
Mhm.
is it a crossover of all three, or do you get, is it just women that you work with, and do they present with all three, or do you, is it like I can't even speak, compartmentalized into those different areas?
I think it's a bit of a mix of all of those things, really. So I don't just work with women, I do work with men as well. I am happy to support family members of as well, because that is really difficult. I work with a lot of men who quite often say to me, I've lost my partner, I don't know who she is, I don't know how to help her. I don't know how to support. Everything I do is wrong. I get told off for breathing too loudly or chewing my food too loudly. I don't know what to say. Everything, get your head ripped off for saying the wrong thing. So yeah, it is a very broad cross section of people that I work with, because I suppose that does cover, if you have adult ADHD, that doesn't mean that you're going through menopause necessarily, but if you're struggling with it, I can support with that. And so it can act the singular issue, but actually quite often the people that come to me have a combination of one or two of those topics, if you like.
Oh, that's really interesting. And what sort of outcomes do people move on with? Do they get strategies, or how can you help them?
Yeah, so I think what I love about what I do, I'm very practically minded, so I'm a big problem solver. My approach is very solution focused, so it's helping people arrive at their own solutions that works for them, that fit in with their lifestyle. So we explore lots of different options. And then it's finding those, whether it's routines or lifestyle changes or the tools and the skills that work well for them. Because I have hundreds of tools in my tool belt to be able to offer people and to be able to say, have you thought about this? Or what do you think about this idea? And then, because if they are stuck and they don't know, if I say to them, okay, what do you think would help? Quite often I'm met with, I just don't know. And that's where we can then make those suggestions, or have you thought about
Yeah.
this or thought about that? And I love that, because when somebody then says, oh, do you know, it's brilliant, I never thought about it like that, and they have that light bulb moment, that's really what does it for me, is when somebody goes, oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, that moment of clarity,
Yeah.
um,
We
which is
call those
brilliant.
the aha moment.
Yes.
Aha.
Yeah, so the outcomes really differ. Everybody who works with me, whether that's through the mental health training, the corporate piece to what I do, or whether it's one-to-one, I like to think, and I hope, and this is the feedback I've had, that they usually go away with something useful that supports them in whatever it is that they're experiencing in that moment.
Yeah, it sounds really helpful. So would you like to say where people can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on my website. I do free 30-minute consultations as well for anybody that is thinking about coaching but isn't quite sure if it's the right thing for them. So you can find me on my website, which is easy for me to say, barbercoaching.life, and that's Barber spelt like the jacket, so Barbour. Or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Barber Coaching. And we also have a menopause support group on Facebook as well, which is called Mastering Your Menopause. And we have a marvelous community of about 650 women now in that community. So if you're stuck, or you want to connect with other people who are experiencing menopause and just talk about what you're experiencing, or get some guidance, we've got some incredible experts in there as well. We have a GP, we have a sleep expert, we have a nutritionist, we have a breathwork expert, a yoga specialist. There's loads of specialists that are part of that community as well. So there's lots and lots of support and help for those experiencing menopause. So yeah, you can find me all over the place. And I'm on LinkedIn too as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh,
I'm
brilliant.
gonna
Thank you.
stop.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate the invitation, and I look forward to hopefully talking to you again.